Hey everybody, this is AJ Ali. I'm back for another profile of love, and you're gonna love this one. This is a dear friend, RaShall Brackney, and I'm gonna read her bio really quickly, and then we're gonna get right into it with her. Here we go. RaShall Brackney, Ph.D., is a distinguished visiting professor of practice at George Mason University and a 2024 Harvard University Advanced Leadership Initiative Fellow. She's the host of the Black Arm of the Law podcast and serves as special assistant to the president for Noble, which is the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. Incredible group. Dr. Brackney served as the chief of police for the city of Charlottesville, Virginia from 2018 to 2022. She's a retired 30-year veteran of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police and the former chief of police of the George Washington University. That's where I was born, George Washington University. So we 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 have some really cool things in common. RaShall, welcome to Profiles of Love. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I see all your aloha up there, ohana and
Yeah,
everything else.
I gotta bring it. I gotta bring the aloha wherever I go. Yes, yes. So the three words above me, aloha, of course, everybody knows that. It's hello, it's goodbye, it's love, it's respect, it's all those things and more. Ho'oponopono is kind of an act of reconciliation and forgiveness. It's a prayer, and it's very simple. It's just, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Those are the four components of Ho'oponopono. And Ohana is family. And that's not just blood family, but that's extended relationships as well. So we are brother and sister, and we're going to have a good time on this podcast.
Looking forward to it.
All right. So, you know what? Let's just jump right in. We do this thing where we go through the four letters of love, and that's an acronym for learn about people, open your heart to their needs, volunteer yourself to be part of the solution in their life, and empower others to do the same. This is kind of a an electronic or visual time capsule of who a person is. So, folks, you already know a little bit about what she does. Now you're going to learn about who she is. So, RaShall, starting with learn with the L, what are some fun facts about you that I might not know? Some things that might surprise people, your likes, your dislikes, weird habits, fears, superpowers. Come on, and it's only you and me and whoever else in the universe sees this. So,
That's right. So some fun facts. I'm one of six siblings. So I have a brother who's the oldest, and
yeah.
then five girls in a row.
Wow.
Right, fun fact. I'm a middle one, but my sister and I, who's the oldest daughter, she and I are what we call Catholic twins. So
Okay.
we are less than a year apart from each other. So for one day, I turn one age and she and I are the same age for a day. And the very next day, she turns a year older. Fun
Oh,
fact.
wow. That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, it's really cool. It's like the first time that the big sister, where I get to say things like, "Oh, you're not my big sister anymore," and in families of color, like that ranking and things
Oh,
like that, that's important, right?
that is,
Being
that
able to
is.
hold on, that's important. Um, Another fun fact, if I was to think about it, years and years ago, and started in Pittsburgh with a group. We started Black Girls Run, the Pittsburgh version. So I used to
Okay.
love running before I got old. Knees got bad, um, those kinds of things. And fun fact: if you offer me pasta any day of the week, a sister gonna eat some pasta. Every day of the week, and don't hate me and don't take any of my cultural cards away, because this ain't
Uh-oh,
necessarily
uh-oh,
a fun fact. You're gonna get some hater mail on me.
uh-oh.
I must be the only person of color who's not a Stevie Wonder fan.
Oh,
So
come on
don't
now. You're not a Stevie Wonder fan?
don't be coming at me. That's all I'm gonna
What?
say. But
What?
so as you Stevie, oh Lord, I just you know, um
You said that
so with
on I won't say national television because this is an international global program. So it might get back to Stevie. What are you gonna say when Stevie calls you up?
Well, when Stevie calls me up, I hope he starts out with "Isn't she lovely?" and just let me off the hook, or "My Sharia Moore," something. But hopefully he lets me off the hook. Um, and I might just have to recant or something and say that AI is the one who put this out on the ethos. It wasn't really me.
And maybe not AI, but ALI. You can blame it on
They
Ali.
blame it on Ali. Yes, yes. So those
Ah,
are some of the fun kind of fact stuff about my life.
so
That
wait a minute.
people
I
will
can't. I
necessarily,
can't. I can't let you off the hook with the Stevie Wonder thing. Tell me why you don't like Stevie Wonder.
so I th- I think it's the screechiness sometimes in his voice. You know, and don't get on me, when I start thinking like Smokey Robinson and that kind of
Uh-huh.
smooth kind of,
Yeah. Yeah.
sound to it. Stevie can be a little screechy. Now we as folks need to be honest. Stevie can get a little screechy on me.
He can. He
Um,
can.
yeah, and then I think when he started to become commercialized in some of his stuff
Yeah.
versus holding to
Yeah.
what I thought was his roots. Like I said, like my Sharia more.
Oh.
But
Yeah.
I'm sorry, don't start singing, the happy birthday anthem to me that all folks now sing because of happy birthday to you. Oh my Lord. Now as a person who can't sing, I should not be saying anything about old Stevie.
I'm
Oh
just.
no, you didn't just put glasses on.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Lord. If you're gonna sing happy birthday to me, I'm about to offend everybody. It's gonna have to be old school fitty party in the club. That's my birthday, right? So
All
that
right
might be
now.
another fun fact. Before I switched to Christian hip hop,
Uh-huh.
which I listened to a lot, I used to just be into like the NWAs and Nas and all the old, school
How about
hardcore, Too
Public
Short,
Enemy? Were you in Public?
public. Oh my goodness, Too Short. Like when I tell you Chubb Rock, anybody from that era that was bringing it,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was my group. And then as I matured in my faith and everything else, I started running to Christian hip hop, um, just because it was much more settling, and I found myself a lot less angry and agitated at the end of my workouts and runs than
Yeah.
I did when Ice Cube was helping me hold it down, or Dre.
Now I'm connected to Ice-T on X, used to be Twitter, and he's a good brother. I met him at the New Music Seminar in New York in the what was it, the 80s? No, like 19, maybe early 1992, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And I don't know him, like, we're not buddies, but he'll respond to something I write every now and then, and vice versa. And his music and the music of so many other artists from that era. And of course he's still doing his thing, but man, it doesn't get any better. Doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, or Dre, Dre
Yeah.
would hit some stuff. And again, I grew up on all that. And if we need to, maybe we can get, we could hit IC up and be like, listen, you play cops on TV, at least respond to us.
You
At
know,
least respond to us. That's what we'll
That's right.
do.
That's right. So good transition, because before we get to the next letter in love, I do want to talk about your work a little bit. And normally we don't go down this path, but you have been in policing for a long time. I guess since you were the age
Yeah.
of two. It, I'm trying to do
That's
the
right.
math,
No,
right?
that's right. That's right. 2 years old, they violated child labor laws. That's what they did.
So how
Yeah.
how has have you enjoyed your career, and what has changed in all these years?
So I love the idea of policing with community, right? I've never really enjoyed the idea of law enforcement.
Okay.
And but policing to me um, really has been the bedrock of the work that I do. How do we take care of each other? Um, you think about the military when they're all cleaning up their barracks or the place around them. They say they're going to police the barracks. They're going to
Mhm.
police that area. That means they're going to restore it to its beauty and its order, and make good sense and make it right again
Yeah.
from what might have been disorder. So for me, policing has really changed in that it continues to swing back and forth. In other words, when I started in 19, um, dear Lord. So when I started literally in 1984, policing was really starting to, for the first time, think about community oriented policing
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
versus this law enforcement, about the arrest, about the numbers more than anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, that was really exciting, particularly coming from neighborhoods that had been underprotected. I grew up in places that were over policed. So that was important for me to
Yeah.
really think about policing in that manner. But then it started to shift, and then we get through the late 80s, early 90s, early 2000s, when we start to hear rhetoric out of the police and law enforcement community, as well as the legislative and political community,
Mm-hmm.
about people who look like us. We were super predators. We were violent. We were crackheads. We were drug dealers. Everything about us um, came with these negative connotations. There
Yeah.
were this upswing in television programs, things like Cops, where all you ever saw was some Black person coming and being pulled out of a home and pushed over a car. And I really started to struggle with what was it that we were doing in this profession.
Okay.
And then, we started going back again when we're trying to do community oriented policing and 21st century policing. And what I'm learning and what I've understood over all these years of nearly 38 years in the profession was that we never really understood what policing was and could and should have been. We're just
Mhm.
always trying to capture and catch a moment um, to justify the institution of policing. And for me, that's been really sad and disheartening. But I also think there's opportunity there, something that's hopeful about where the profession could go if we all lean into it.
Yeah, I'm hopeful as well. I talk a lot with peace officers around the country about things like the Peelian principles. Sir Robert Peel, people are the police and police are the people, basically, right? And there's a bunch of different principles, and not many peace officers can tell me past that one, right? They can only tell me number one. They can't tell me like two through nine. So
Right. Including one that says that police are paid to do what the people should be doing naturally,
yes,
right? Is one of
yes,
those principles, right? And
that's
they
right.
talk a lot about justice in the Peelian principles as well. And so Robert Peel came out of London, and most people do know that um, in like 1815 or 1817 is when he first started in front of the Parliament to talk about these principles of policing. Um, which was interesting because we claim we adopted those here in the United States, when in reality, I think he was 1817 and 1816, we had the slave-holding South who were citing slaveholders' oaths to do this work, and it had
Yes,
nothing to do with the Peelian principles.
that's
But to
right.
make ourselves feel better, we would love to think that modern day policing here in America was modeled after such a heroic figure as Sir Robert Peel, when in reality, that is so far from the truth.
Yeah, and all of us see that, right? And
Yeah,
many of us has have experienced that,
that's
which
right.
really led me down this path of the work that I do with Love is the Answer, a curiosity really of why is the reality so disconnected from the messaging that they're putting out there, including to protect and serve on the sides of the cars. I don't even know if that's on there anymore, but the reality is that when we see a police car coming down the road in the Black community, 9 times out of 10, we're not thinking, oh, they're here to protect and serve me, right? And so I'm
Oh, you
excited.
might get served. Like we
You
used to say in the school, you
might
might
get
get
served.
served, but it ain't gonna
Yeah.
be the way you want to. Right.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I'm excited about, to have you and friends like Melvin Russell and many
Yes.
others in the profession doing things the right way, teaching other people how to do things the right way. And I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for, being you. And hopefully we can have a lot more people like you coming up in the ranks so that things can change and get better. Because I'm really hopeful that it can get better.
Oh, I am too. I absolutely, or I would not still be doing this work, right? We would all be going off somewhere, hiding in the corner, sucking our thumbs, just
Yeah.
trying to make it through the day. Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
So let's now we're in a conversation about challenges now, because we're going to go to into the open your heart section of the LOVE, and this is where I'm going to ask you, what's the most challenging thing you've ever experienced and how did you deal with it, and what did you learn from that experience?
So I'm gonna do it twofold. Like I'm gonna talk about how my personal life influenced my professional life and how those things keep moving back and forth because
Okay.
we all know our personal lives really do shape and inform the way we go about a lot of our professional work, or at
Yeah.
least our public facing work.
Yeah.
So for your listening audience, oftentimes when people see me, they think someone who might be racially fluid. They're not really sure about my racial um, and ethnic composition. And my dad was Italian and German, and
Okay.
my mother is African American and Native American. And they got married before Virginia v. Loving in 1967, which meant they had to go to a justice of the peace. It wasn't recognized, and they could go to D.C. versus places like Pennsylvania and the Catholic Church, and they were both Catholic.
Hmm.
As a result of that, what really influenced me, and when you talk about opening your heart to others, my paternal grandmother disowned my father for marrying a Black woman.
Mm.
So, to the most stark terms, this white woman who had migrated to the United States from Germany had these very core beliefs about interracial marriages, and it was probably, I'm sure, easily influenced. And this is before, the Third Reich and Hitler's terms, but just that whole way in which you looked at race mingling, which you heard a
Mm.
lot of coming out of Europe and Britain and places like that, and here in the United States. So the fact that she disowned him, the fact that the first racial slurs that my sisters and I ever were exposed to came directly from our first cousins,
Mm.
um, or even my paternal grandmother. And there was an incident when she died. I was about 10 years old. She had incorporated into her will that none of these biracial mixed children were permitted into her house for the wake. So even after her death, she
Wow.
held on to this bitterness
Mm.
um, about race. That really did inform the work that I did in policing,
Okay.
that I could see how an institution that had been built on racism could really hurt those people who have been marginalized by society, who have been downtrodden, who have literally and figuratively been beaten and pushed out and put on the fringes. So I use that all the time to think about what did it feel like to be an other, someone who might have been marginalized by society. And every encounter, then I made sure that the person's dignity and humanity was present in front of me,
Mm.
regardless of whatever crime they had committed. And that informed that, and they moved back and forth by feeling like somebody who was less than human based on their race or their circumstances. How might somebody who I'm meeting on the worst day of their life, either as a victim or have perpetrated a crime, still allow them the dignity and grace to be human in that
Mm.
moment?
So you were in Charlottesville, Virginia from 2018 until 2022. That skill set, that awareness, that which makes you who you are, must have been greatly appreciated in that community, especially during that time.
That would be negative, Ghost Rider.
Is it? Hey, that's a surprise.
That would be negative. So
Wow.
I would have thought, no, so you're right. This is a really a natural assumption to think,
Mm,
hey, this person is arriving, right? Um, after the deadly Unite the Right rally, which was over the removal or the petition to remove or take down these Confederate monuments and statues.
mhm,
That was the impetus for the Unite the Right rally, to push back on taking down statues of Lee and Jackson, right? Stonewall Jackson. As a result, we have white nationalists from all over the United States show up in Charlottesville.
mhm.
Um, the planners of it are Charlottesville natives. Both of them had attended UVA and are Charlottesville neighbors and brought them in. So you would think that someone is coming in with a multi-ethnic perspective, has been in policing in 38 years, worked in, or at that point, 30 something years, worked in a major city at a university, comes in with their doctorate, that what, this is the person you want to be able to do that, and is known as one of the most reform-minded chiefs in the business. I think what happens in places like Charlottesville when you have a lot of trauma,
Mhm.
that people are not ready for the cure.
Mm,
Like, there's just, it was too new, it's too raw. But there was something that I think we underestimate, is the investment that we often have in our institutions and how safe our institutions make us feel in their current configuration. So when you're trying to dismantle institutions
yeah.
and people are heavily invested either financially or through their identity or through their politics or through their faith, whatever that belief is, you are going to be met with a whole lot of resistance, right? And to
Absolutely.
your point, our people are willing to open up themselves and their hearts to new ideas and things of that nature. So it was a lot more difficult. And I was met with a lot of racist remarks, death threats, etc.,
Mm,
because people were committed to the institutions.
wow. Wow. And on my end of things, I've never been a peace officer. I served in the United States Air Force, so I did wear a uniform, a different kind of uniform. So I was very, very familiar with that structure, that system, right? Uh, I went through some things in the military. As a
Oh,
60-year-old black man, I've gone through, 60 years worth of racism in America. And I've seen these systems, including and especially the policing system
yeah.
is so reluctant to change. It is so, I'll tell you what, when I was in the early stages of making the film Walking While Black, Love is the Answer, I was sitting at a Starbucks in Howard County, Maryland, where I lived at the time when I was stopped for walking down the street, which prompted me to make the film. And a young lady walked into the Starbucks and she had on gym clothes. It was a gym right next door, so she was coming from a workout. She looks over at me. I had never met her before, and she said, "I know who you are." And then she said, "When you get finished making the film that you're working on, would you please make a film about sexual harassment and misogyny in policing?" And she went on to tell me about all the things that she was going through. And it broke my heart. And I've never
Oh, yeah.
forgotten that moment. And I've talked to so many female police leaders who share the same story. In fact, I've never met a female police officer who has not told me that there's a major, major cultural issue within policing, not only about race, but also about sex. So have
Yeah.
you have you hit those walls and come up against that kind of that kind of issue in your career?
Yeah, I mean, active sexual harassment. And again, people were, this is all before Me Too, when you complained, the people you're complaining to are the people who are harassing you, right? They're your supervisors. Um, Literally, so there's 2 points to this, right? Understanding that policing today is still about 80% white male. Once you put that number out there, and there's a 700 and about 35,000 police officers across the nation, from the local level, sheriffs, tribal, state, and federal.
Okay.
And women still only make up 12% of those. Women in supervisory positions, 3%. Now, supervisory is from the very, corporal, sergeant, lieutenant captain. So somebody like myself, who is a Black female chief twice, I'm at like the 0.005% likelihood that I'll ever attain that position.
Wow.
I was literally on probation. And that means I was a rookie, right? I'm a rookie. I'm just out. I am 21 years old when I start policing. My supervisors are typically 45-year-old, 50-year-old white males. The harassment was so pervasive. We had to put back then old-fashioned trap and trace, where they would trace your phone for obscene phone calls. They were traced back to the police station that were coming to my house all hours of the day and night. They were
Wow.
putting notes in my box, like my mailbox or my locker, that if they had caught me walking out, to be careful, they catch me walking out in the parking lot in the garages, what gang rape would look like for me. They were,
Wow.
I mean, the harassment was just awful. My one inspector, literally, as I was old school looking in a phone book to find a victim's name and number, as I'm bent over a table, takes a paper tube and smacks me on my behind with it as he walks past me, and he's my inspector.
Mm.
As he does that, I don't realize what's happening. I grab the phone book and smack whoever it was that just happened to hit me. But there isn't a single person that I know who hasn't come up through that system and experienced that kind of harassment.
Wow.
Even today, as much as we try and pretend, and it doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is.
Mm.
It's just the feeling and the pervasiveness of sexual harassment, much like in the military. We heard about Aberdeen Proving Grounds, and I think it was called Hookgate or whatever, when they had to run down the naval one, and as they were doing their weeks. Now, the one thing I will say about you, in your favor,
Mm.
all of my family members are military. They're all Marines, with the
Okay.
exception of
Good.
one.
Okay.
My one uncle, my mother's brother, so all her brothers were Marines. One was in the Air Force.
All
And
right.
his joke to his other brothers, his two other brothers who were in the Marine Corps, he said, listen, I am too pretty to be out there on front lines. I need to be flying some jets. And that's why he went to the Air Force versus the Marine Corps like his brothers.
Oh,
So
that's funny.
you gotta, if that was his line, not mine, as we're talking about misogyny and harassment. But it made me smile internally, God rest his soul, as he's long gone on, and it was from California, or lived in California for years.
Okay.
He was the Marine, he was the Air Force connection.
All right. All right. Well, he's my favorite. He's my favorite. Goes
He's-
without saying. So, so let's move on to the volunteer, the V. This is about social responsibility and how you give back and why and kind of what drives you. We do the learn part, which is with the head. You learn stuff with your brain. You let it sift down through your heart, and then we got to do something with it, right? So what do you do with what you learn about the community, and how do you enjoy giving back?
So I sit on more nonprofit boards than I know what to do with at this point in time. That's okay. That's okay. So how do you get back, right? I think we all have an obligation to say yes, right? Not no. We have an obligation to say yes. If you have found yourself in any position of favor on this God's green earth, whatever your beliefs are, you have a responsibility not only to those ancestors or shoulders that you have found yourself standing on, but for those individuals who may not have had it even as difficult or as tragic or traumatic as your life has been,
Mhm.
their lives still you wouldn't trade for, right? We have a responsibility to see the humanity in every single person, and how do we move them from where they are to where they see themselves being, right? Not where I believe they need to be, but where they see themselves being. One of the boards that I sit on is called Homewood Children's Village, and it's modeled after Jeffrey Canada's Harlem Children's Zone. And the mere concept is that we will reweave the fabric of society so that we remove every barrier for our children from cradle to career,
Mm,
to be successful, to literally thrive and not just survive the communities that we come in. And
nice.
that's important to me. Another one that I sit on is called From Our Ancestors' Imagination. And it literally is all of the services that we all bring collectively that help uplift every single person who is in need at no cost. You
Nice.
know, the Divided Community Project. What are those things that we have that create tension? And how do we heal communities, authentically heal communities around that? One of the ones that, so people will be surprised, I said was called Alliance for Police Accountability. How
Okay.
do we make
Okay.
this system? And I'm one of the founding board members on that one. How do we make the system really work so that police can do their job, as you say, peacemakers, right? For they will be called children of God, right?
Mhm.
Peacemakers, how do they do their job better? And how does community support them by holding ourselves accountable,
Yes.
right? So that's one way that I believe in giving back. And there probably isn't a group. I have at least 10 kids. I call them kids, but they're young adults,
Uh-huh.
probably more mature, in their mid, probably 30s or 40s. I mentor who, from the time they start into the policing profession,
Mhm.
let's define who you are and who you're going to be from day one. And I answer those phone calls day in and day out, or even whatever the profession is. We have a responsibility to train up folks, to give them the inheritance that they may not have ever received, either in community or home or professionally.
That's awesome. And full disclosure for my viewers, RaShall is on our advisory council as well for Love is the Answer. And when I learned about all the great things that she's done and then learned about who she is, I had to ask her, and she said yes, thankfully. So thanks for being in our world as well.
Yeah, you're welcome. And there's another really important one, which is another alliance that most people wouldn't know. I literally am sitting on the board now for Hope 929. And that is Selwyn Jones, Uncle Selwyn Jones, who is the uncle of George Floyd, about
Okay.
how we can do this work differently and better.
Hmm.
These
Beautiful.
unlikely alliances are a result of all of the things that you're saying. Love is the answer. He should have no reason to want to work with me, right? He should have absolutely no reason to want to work with law enforcement. But what do you do when you push past all of that to get to a greater purpose?
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's really what we're all about at Love is the Answer as well. I run into people every single day, including family members who say they don't want to have anything to do with policing. They just want to, abolish it and so forth. First of all, that's never going to happen. We're never going to get rid of policing. We have to have some form of policing in our society, but it is our responsibility, every single one of us, to make it better. And to do that, we have to communicate with each other. We have to be in relationship with each other. And you're so good at that. And I want to encourage anyone who's watching to get involved. Reach out to me, reach out to RaShall, reach out to other people who are in the profession or working to make the profession better. And together we can change everything. I truly believe that.
Oh, you about to start preaching, huh?
Come on
Amen.
now.
Do I hit you with an amen? Hit you with an amen now. Oh shoot. And it's
So,
not even Sunday.
so when we talk about fight the power, we fight the power by joining forces, all of us to make things better, not to try to tear something down or get rid of it, but to improve it from within and hold people accountable. And that's the solution right there. That's what works. It takes time. It's not overnight, but it does work.
That's true. That is true. And if you think the system that we built in the last 400 years is going to be changed in the next 40 days, without us doing the work, without us getting in there and getting involved and putting some authentic skin in the game, you know,
Yeah,
building alliances, building allyships, um, that's the only way we can do it.
that's right. All right, so I got one more question for you, and this is my favorite one of all. And it goes like this. If you knew that this was your last day on Earth, and Lester Holt from NBC News invited you to share one last message with the world to inspire people to be good to yourself and others, what would you say?
So, first of all, I've actually had an interview with Lester Holt. Go on now, sister, right? But here's what I would tell them if this was your last day and living every day like this. And I'm now starting to really think about writing an article or a book on this subject too, and it's this: your inheritance doesn't have to be your legacy.
Hmm,
I would tell every one of us what you leave behind does not have to be what you inherited.
yeah.
And that to me leads us down all sorts of pathways of possibility.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. So,
We're
you
gonna get
know,
some t-shirts. You're inherited.
please do
We're gonna
that.
start marketing this.
I'll be the
That
first
would be it.
I'll be the first one to buy that t-shirt, because it is so real. There's so many stories of people who have either come from a line of people who have done negative things, or they themselves were caught up in some things. Yeah, the whole movement, the Love is the Answer movement, really exists because of my brother Abby, who passed away of cancer in 1998 at 48 years old. He spent the first half of his life getting into trouble. He was a one-man
Right?
gang. He spent time in prison. He took a man's life, he dealt drugs, he did all these things, he robbed banks. And the whole time he was doing it, he kept me away from that lifestyle.
Yeah.
And when he finally got out of that lifestyle, he did so much in his community in Washington, D.C., so many positive things that at his funeral that it was overflowing. It was not a seat available. There were people, hundreds of people there. Many of them came up and shared stories with us, the family, about how Abby impacted their life. And I heard so many things that I didn't know. I already loved my brother, and he was my hero from day one until the last day. And so that's why, I do this work, because the last words he ever said on this earth were whispered in my ear. He said, "Love is the answer," and he passed away. And I carried that with me for years until it really hit me hard in 2014 on my 51st birthday, when those words came back to me like a rushing river, and it changed everything for me. That's the day that I decided I was going to love on peace officers, even though they might kill me. Because at that time, I was getting death threats from police for
Yeah.
wanting to change things. And I made that decision. I was going to love them to life, no matter what they did to me. And I'll never regret that decision. My life has been infinitely better ever since. And if we can get out of that place that we're at now to get to a better place and make an impact on this earth, isn't that why we're here?
That's right. Your inheritance doesn't have to be your legacy.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rashal. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience before we?
No, I'm just so excited to be here. Again, to your listening audience, just get involved. However way and whatever way is meaningful to you, get involved. Don't just complain about it. Don't just throw darts at people and daggers at people. Get involved in whatever way that is meaningful to you, it's amazing how you'll feel about yourself, your community, and your fellow human beings. It's amazing.
Amen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me so much.
All right. Aloha.
Aloha.